like Da Vinci's, interlocking fields of fire when you're building the tackle. It's very, very similar to that. And when you see guys that are picking up one guy at the start of the play, but by the end of the play they're blocking on a second guy, it's very difficult for an offense to deal with that kind of a shift in defensive pass pressure.
Absolutely. Plus, I think he's got to make some adjustments with that Tampa 2 scheme, obviously. And, that went from being cutting edge to, behind the times in a lot of ways, depending on how you look at it. So, that's what I think is, and I think that'll come. I think a lot of the problems right now, and this is a first year, new coach, new personnel. As he learns his personnel, I think next year you're going to see a much improved Tampa Bay team under him because he's a smart coach. I know what you're saying, and I agree with the schemage a bit, but he'll use his guys better once he's got a handle for what he's got, and more importantly, what he doesn't have or what he doesn't think he has on that team. So, but that's one place that I would definitely keep my eye on things. And speaking of the coaches, speaking of Mike Pettin, I always bring up things. I like to counter the good with the bad. Something else he said this week that I love is because the easy thing to say is, "Hey man, the Browns are 4-3. All right, haven't been there since 2007. They've won 3 of 4." He was asked if he's happy with where the team is. He said no, not at all, because I can tell you maybe 3 or 4 plays from our victories, but I could tell you almost every bad play from the games that we lost. And he said, I'm nowhere near happy with where we're at. And that's what I want to hear at 4-3, because, some guys would lean on their petard a little bit there, but he's like, no, I'm not happy at all. Not happy at all. And that's what they need to be to continue to get better.
Well, that goes to show you that that's a feather in his cap, because he knows that he can't rest lightly on things. That 4-3 is only a half the game of 500, and he knows if he wants to be in the playoffs, he has to do better, and the team has to do better. So that's a smart comment on his part.
So let's look around outside of Cleveland a little bit, Doc Football. Of course, Dr. Football talking to J-Rock here as we're going around the NFL. Let's do that, my man, and look at some of the other games. What were some of the big things that stood out to you this week?
Well, obviously, that Cardinal game was a tremendous game, and being there in the press box, I couldn't get to see as much of the Browns-Raiders game as I would have liked. But I was very happy with what the Cardinals did. They had you on the edge of their seat the entire game. They kept it close. They had some really, really good pass plays. That 80-yarder Fitzgerald, that was a career record for him. And, Brown at the end of the game coming through when nobody thought that, this guy could complete a deep pass downfield. He just lets it rip. And, that's how they finished the game. And the defense really, really kept it to the Eagles. I was happy to see Chip Kelly walk out of there with a loss, because I can't stand the Eagles no matter who they're playing. It doesn't matter who they're playing. I just hate the Eagles and the Cowboys are 2 teams that I can't stand. Obviously, J-Rock, you know why. But,
absolutely.
That made me feel real good sitting in that traffic going home.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, John Brown, that's another one. He may be a year away from people knowing who he is, but, man, that's a speedster that they've got. I know people might have noticed him with that one catch, but I've had him on the bench on my fantasy roster all season, and I've been kind of keeping an eye. Man, that dude can go, man. That may be a future emerging weapon there for them over the next year or two. Right now, he's still kind of buried a bit on the depth chart. He's your 3rd or 4th option. But, man, as you saw, he can get down the field. And Jeremy Maclin, huge game for him on the other side, too, there as well. Good game there. Just a good football game. And even it comes down to the end. Philly, with the game-winning touchdown, they complete the pass. They get the play that they want, but Jordan Matthews unable to bring it down with both feet inbounds. Man, it was just a great end to the game, but an ugly game. John McMullen and I were talking about that. You guys, those are the ones in the press box that feel like they're taking forever when you've got 20 penalties and 200 penalty yards in the middle of it.
No question about it. It was really, really rough. And, I had a hard time today trying to figure out which bandana the Bulldog would wear. And he's got his Brownie Bulldog bandana on. So,
there we go.
He's pretty happy today.
Much appreciated to the Bulldog there. You know, some of the other teams, I mentioned it this week, 4 teams broke 43 points or higher. 2 teams broke 50 points. Pittsburgh put a shellacking on the Colts. New England whipped on Chicago as well there. And a big offensive week. 4 quarterbacks with 400 yards. First time that's ever happened in the same week. That, to me, it's just a function of today's NFL. I said it yesterday. In 5 years or less, you'll have 4 quarterbacks throw for 500 yards on the same day. I guarantee you that's how quickly the offense is escalating in today's NFL. But it was a good week.
This is what the league wants.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what
they
want.
Scoring. Yep. They want 40-point games.
Yep.
Because they want people to. They don't want people who don't have the ticket, to switch around. They want people to stay on their local game, and they don't want networks to switch over to another game when the local game is a blowout. So, this is what they want. They want, offensive output. It was a defensive game for so many years, Jerry. In our time growing up as teens and in our early 20s, obviously, it was a defensive game in the 70s and 80s, and now it's an offensive game. It's completely turned around in 25 years.
Oh, I know, my brother. I know. That is for sure. And that's the way they want it. That, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was saying it made the NFL happy this week to see the offensive explosions. A couple of teams. I wanted to talk to you. Let's talk about Monday Night Football real quick. Colt McCoy last night. What a game. Really played a great game last night, but the Redskins played a great game. Upset the Cowboys. Brandon Wheaton did what a backup quarterback's supposed to do. Came in, played well in his time when Romo was hurt. I think, personally, they should have left him in at the end of the game just because I don't know that Romo was totally back to his wits and back to feeling good, as those first couple of plays at the end of the game mattered. But, Colt McCoy, I mean, seriously, good story. Goes back to Texas, wins the game. And I mentioned it at the beginning, but I want your thoughts. I could care less if I ever hear Chucky Gruden call a football game again. To me, he's awful. He is a cartoon shell of his whatever his former self was. And last night, I thought it was comical to listen as the play calls were coming in with 5 and 6 seconds left on the play clock. Him try to push the blame from the other Gruden that happens to be on the sideline, and he kept making it sound like Colt McCoy couldn't get the plays in time. And I'm like, last I checked, Colt McCoy wasn't calling the plays on the sideline, but it was such a conflict of interest for me. I'm like, he shouldn't be allowed to do Redskin games with his brother over there on the sideline. Like, that should not, that's a conflict of interest, and it was coming across clearly in his commentary.
Yeah, it was, and it was annoying at one point. I know I turned the sound down on the television, and I went and I found the game on my Sirius app, and I was listening to the radio play-by-play instead, because he can be really, annoying. He's very good. There's something about Chucky. He's very good interviewing people. He's very good breaking down, players, especially receivers and quarterbacks, talking about what they're talking about when he does the stuff leading up to the draft. But
right.
As a play-by-play, as a color commentator on football games, he's horrible.
Yeah, he is. He is horrible. And as he's talking, the video on the screen can actually be refuting the words coming out of his mouth. He's not even smart enough to back off what he's saying. He'll just keep pushing the wrong narrative, and you'll see other people as they interact with him like, okay, I'm not going to make him look bad because I'm a professional and we don't call each other out on the air, but what is this guy talking about? I mentioned the Colt McCoy thing. At one point, he had buried Colt McCoy for 3 quarters, and then McCoy's stats come up on the screen, and he was 20 of 25 at the time. And I'm like, man, you would have thought he was 5 of 25 the way he was talked about all game. The Redskins should be leading this game by 40 if they would have had a competent quarterback. And I'm like, wait a minute, he's 25 of 30 for the game? And then in the post game, he was even trying that. Well, he was shaky at first and he got it together, I guess. He missed a couple of throws early, I'll give you that. But it was an early game narrative that he tried to continue to play out. And I truly did feel that he was covering up for the late play calls coming in, and I thought that was kind of bogus, man.
Yeah, and what it is, is he didn't have a horrible game. He had a very good game, all things considering. And you kept going to the shots of his mom and dad, up in the luxury suite with all the Cowboy fans around him. And every time he did something good, the Cowboy fans were quiet, and his mom and dad were cheering. And I was saying, looks like a pretty good game for McCoy to me. So I don't know what's going on. To get back to what LG was saying in the chat room earlier, he does deserve a shout out and a big pat on the back because he had a good game.
Man, that drive in overtime. How about that one play where he scrambled out with his legs, got away from the defender, arm signaled. I think it was Halou. I can't remember. It was one of the backs for that pass where he threw it over the defender and the guy was able to catch it and get both feet down. I mean, he made some good plays and like I said, I don't know what would have happened if Colt McCoy didn't get beat up so bad here in Cleveland. Who knows how life would have turned out. A lot of us can play the what-if game. But for somebody to persevere, and I just thought it was a hell of a story for it to circle back to the state of Texas and in his home state, come back home, and he may never get another start. RG3 may be back in next week, and he'll go back to being the backup quarterback. He may never get another start in his career, but he was able to come back home, and it was almost like it made the last 3 years worth it. I think those stories are the cool ones in sports sometimes.
I think he did better for the entire remainder of his career by doing what he did last night. That will help pave the way to whatever position he gets next. If the Redskins decide to keep him, and keep him as an ace in, as an ace in the back pocket, that's fantastic. But I see him finishing his career somewhere else, where he actually gets a chance to compete again.
Maybe he goes to Houston, man. He go back home. They say you can't go home. It worked for LeBron. Maybe it'll work for Colt McCoy, man. They need a quarterback over there, man. But anyways, it was a good story for one night.
They do.
Oh, yeah, Fitzpatrick's not having it happen. But seriously, it was a good story for one night, and I hope it continues. But even if it doesn't, I thought it was cool, especially because firsthand we saw what Colt McCoy went through. And if you guys think it wasn't some drama, it was. And it was a physical beating. Once again, the whole concussion protocol exists because of what happened to that man here in Cleveland. Just keep that in mind when we talk about what happened to Colt McCoy. A couple of other situations I wanted to talk to you about. Jets. What dysfunction? They spell it. How do you spell Jets? It's not Jets. It's Dysfunction. Dysfunction.
I like I said, I might have mentioned that I have a good friend who covers the Jets, and he's writing a documentary. He's doing a documentary movie or, two-part TV show, however they get it sold, on Jet fans who lost their tickets because they couldn't afford the PSLs. And, a group of these fans, a couple hundred of these fans still come every week, and they sit in the parking lot and watch the games on TV while barbecuing in the parking lot. And it's a really, really good story. So I just want to shout out for my friend Dave Levy, who's doing that. I talk with him every week after the Jets game, and he said to me, he said, I don't even want to turn the TV on anymore on Sundays. That's how bad it is. He said he hasn't been. He's only been to two games this year, and only because he gets a pass now. So that's the only reason why he comes, because he's making a documentary. He said, but it's really, really. He said it's stomach turning. He said I can't even keep down a good meal after a Jet game on Sunday anymore. It's terrible.
Hey, listen, we've gone through 15 years of 95% dysfunction, so I've got no sympathy for the Jets here in Cleveland. But to me, there's no way. Maybe just because, but man, I don't even know if Rex Ryan's the one coach that may not make it through this season. He may not even make it to the offseason. Maybe he will, just because it takes a lot to get a coach fired during the season. Maybe if he pushes the issue at the end for an extension, then they just decide to part ways with a couple of games left in the season. But there's no way Rex Ryan goes forward. And I pointed out this morning, this quarterback mumbo jumbo here in New York is one example why the Browns need to just do exactly what they're doing and lock in the noise from the outside, because you've got a ruined. I don't even know what Geno Smith's ceiling was. I don't know how good he could or couldn't be, but he has been totally